For the first time, we're hearing the chaotic moments as emergency crews arrived in what is the deadliest mass shooting in state history.
26 people dead, around 20 wounded.
What Governor Abbott calls the state's worst mass shooting in its history.
As governor, I asked for every mom and dad at home tonight that you put your arm around your kid and give your kid a big hug and let them know how much you love them.
And many of those injured brought here to San Antonio for treatment. Our Jesse DeGoyata reports from BAMC, where a number of the shooting victims were taken.
BAMC is one of the nation's top military hospitals that is also a level 1 trauma center here.
Also taking in victims from that church shooting. In a tweet, University said, quote, "Our trauma team is caring for 9 of the patients from the Sutherland Springs shooting, 4 children, 5 adults, plus 1 more patient on the way at that time," end quote. University says their hearts are with the victims.
Only light. Only love.
That's what I remember first off, is that, family, friends, and community were there. If we didn't have people that care, I may not be alive at this point.
Chris Workman is a worship music leader at Sutherland Springs First Baptist Church. He grew up in Lavernia and after college came home to San Antonio.
I started going back to church, and at that time, my mom was going to Sutherland Springs First Baptist, so because that's where she was going, that's where I went.
Rusty Duncan is the assistant fire chief for the Stockdale Fire Department. He was heading into Sutherland Springs that Sunday when his phone alerted.
Our chief sent out a message saying, "Hey, stay out of Sutherland Springs, there's an active shooter situation."
He headed straight to the church. His chief arrived about the same time.
And my chief was starting to go up to the building, and he said, "I'm going to call in for resources. Prepare yourself."
At about the same time, University Hospital's Level 1 Pediatric Trauma Medical Director, Dr. Lillian Liao, was sitting in a conference room with most of the trauma surgical team. It was a site visit from the American College of Surgeons.
Around 11:30, all of our pagers went off, and it was a notification that a mass casualty incident had occurred in Sutherland Springs. We knew that we would be getting patients. We don't know how many.
Across town, the Level 1 trauma team at Brooke Army Medical Center was also activating its mass casualty protocol.
We were, prepared to receive as many patients that were going to come to us, so we opened up 15 trauma bays.
Lieutenant Colonel Wyland Peterson is a BAMC trauma surgeon. He was actually off that Sunday. When he heard what happened, he called his chief to see if he was needed.
He told me, just to be ready to take over the ICU on the following day.
As the 2 Level 1 trauma centers prepared to receive the wounded, Rusty Duncan entered the church. About 2 minutes in, he felt something tug at his pant leg. It was a little boy.
Where we made eye contact for the first time.
Those eyes belonged to 5-year-old Rylan Ward. Rusty gently carried him out and laid him on the ground.
Noticed his arm was really, really bad, so I took my belt off, put it around his arm to stop the bleeding. And then I started taking out gauze, whatever they had in the bag, I was just using everything I could to pack it in.
Rylan never lost consciousness.
I was yelling at him to keep his eyes open.
Chris Workman was also carried out by first responders.
I was in a lot of pain, but I remember hearing the sort of commotion, and I remember hearing family members and community members, working together, just doing the best that they could to help.
He felt grateful to be alive, and even more grateful that his wife and 4-year-old daughter were not at church that morning. His mom, Julie Workman, on the other hand, was exactly where she was needed.
She was literally the first responder inside the church. She's been an ER nurse, she's been an operating room nurse, so she knew exactly what to do, and the first thing that she thought of was tourniquets.
She ran out of the building and came back with a stack of towels.
these blue towels. We call Julie rags, but they're these blue towels that she gets from the operating room. And she used these blue towels as tourniquets, and she was just tying these blue towels on everybody.
No doubt she saved many lives that day.
You know, what can you say about that? My mom, literally is my hero, and I'll tell people that plainly. The best place to be is right next to her.
Chris was loaded into an ambulance and rushed to BAMC. He was trying to hang on, to stay calm.
Just focusing in on staying alive,
Back at University Hospital, Dr. Liao spoke with the operating rooms, the nursing leaders on the pediatric floor, as well as the pediatric intensive care specialists. It was already a busy day.
Sunday is one of our busiest days for trauma care, and that doesn't stop even though we had a mass casualty incident.
They got organized quickly, and then they waited.
It was over an hour from the time we were notified before patients would come.
She remembers thinking, they'll be here any minute.
When people weren't here in the first 30 minutes, the thought was, why aren't they coming? And your first thought is that they're not coming because they're dead.
When they heard the first patients were en route,
our thoughts are, wow, they've been bleeding for a long time, and they're in shock.
Ryland was one of the first to arrive.
So the things that you could see, he had a pretty large hole in his arm and a pretty large hole in his leg. And he's not big, he's small.
He'd been bleeding for more than an hour.
He did have tourniquets on his arm and on his left leg, but he also had holes in and near his trunk, his torso. So we knew he had other internal bleedings that we couldn't see.
He was in the OR within 10 minutes.
We knew we needed multiple teams to work on him.
Dr. Liao, another general surgeon, as well as the orthopedics, urology, and anesthesia teams worked together to just stabilize him. When Chris arrived at BAMC, he remembers seeing a lot of people and activity.
It felt like everybody kind of knew what they were supposed to do, and they were just doing it as best they could.
He needed to go to the OR right away, too.
He had 2 gunshot wounds to his abdomen, and then they had gone through his back. And so it injured his portion of his bowel.
His spinal cord was also damaged.
At that point, I couldn't feel my legs, so I didn't know what that would mean.
He remembers waking up after surgery. He did what he calls a system check.
Like, shoulders, arms, okay, fingers, those work, and then you kind of move your way down, and it's like, okay, legs still not working.
Feet, knees, nothing.
That's when you kind of realize, that it may still be persistent or permanent.
Ryland did well with his first big operation. Post-op, he went to the pediatric intensive care unit. Unfortunately, Dr. Liao wasn't able to update his family right away.
Ryland wasn't Ryland. He was an unknown patient. He didn't have a name tag on him, so we couldn't say who is the family for Ryland. So it took a little bit to find Ryland's family.
When she finally had the chance to speak to them, she remembers feeling hopeful he would live.
Survival has different meanings to different people. And I think we only knew that he would live, but we didn't know what his quality of life would be.
Ryland's injuries were extensive.
His femur was in a million pieces. His hip was partially blown out.
She was also worried about whether he'd ever be able to use his arm again. Back in Wilson County, after a very long, tiring, and emotional day, Rusty went home.
I went into the bathroom, and first time probably in 16 years, I broke down. And all I could think about is Ryland.
He'd never met him before, but he couldn't get his face, his eyes, out of his mind. It was a long night for everyone. The next morning, Lieutenant Colonel Peterson arrived at BAMC for ICU rounds at 6 a.m.
At that point, I believe the ICUs were actually full.
With the 8 patients from Sutherland Springs, plus the routine trauma patients. He remembers meeting Chris Workman's family.
you could tell that they were a tight-knit family.
Their exceptional kindness really touched their hearts.
And we were really motivated to really work hard and get him better.
Rusty was motivated too. He reached out to the Ward family through friends. Then he went to University Hospital to officially meet Ryland.
I leaned down and I asked him, I said, "Do you know who I am?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, who am I?" He said, "You yelled at me." I said, "Yeah, I yelled at you." I said, "But it looks like you're doing pretty good now. I won't yell at you again."
He knew right away he'd do everything he could to support him and his family. In the coming weeks and months, Ryland's dad, Chris Ward, was glad for the support, as he spent just about every day and night at Ryland's bedside. His focus on getting his son better was intense, and the trauma team was right there with him.
The doctors are amazing here. If he didn't come here, I don't know if he had made it, honestly.
At BAMC, Lieutenant Colonel Peterson very quickly engaged the physical medicine team to develop a treatment plan for Chris's spinal cord injury.
Give him the proper exercises and the proper techniques to hopefully get better.
They just said, "Here's your x-rays. As you can see, you don't have much of a spinal cord left."
You hear the phrase, "Give it to God," a lot. He means it.
I tell people this and I get funny faces, but it doesn't matter if I walk again. This didn't take God off guard. So if he's left me here, he's left me here for a reason. And whatever that reason is, it's not going to require the use of my legs.
But that doesn't mean he isn't pushing the boundaries of his recovery. He went to University Health System's Reeves Rehabilitation.
I've actually recovered some muscle control and strength in places that don't make a lot of sense according to my injury, so I'm kind of confounding my doctors and my therapists.
At some point, he expects to plateau, but he's not ready to call it quits quite yet.
But now, even as of a month ago, I actually have some control where I can move it in and I can lift it up and stuff like that, and that's new. So, progress is continuing.
For Ryland, progress was initially slow. He was kept in a medical coma for the first several weeks.
By probably a couple of weeks before Christmas, I think was when he was back to his mischievous personality.
Shortly after the holidays, Ryland was ready to go home. On January 8th, he was the last of all of the injured patients to go home. Very quickly, Dr. Liao realized this would not be a routine discharge. He wanted to go home in a fire truck.
From a trauma surgeon standpoint, it was a little bit of an acid reflux experience for me because he's a 5-year-old who shouldn't be sitting in the front seat, and yet he did.
At least he was in a booster seat. Rusty drove the fire truck.
But he wanted the siren on nonstop. He wanted the horn blowing nonstop. He was checking out the helicopters. They had firefighters on the bridges, police on the bridges. They were saluting them.
There were thousands of people with signs.
And I think he serves as their hope that, they can recover.
Dr. Liao remembers the day she thought he'd be okay, at least from a physical perspective.
The day that he got on his ATV and we saw videos of it on social media that he did that, I thought, from a physical standpoint, we did about as well as anyone could do for him.
But she worries about him. The mental aspect of trauma care cannot be ignored, so trauma psychosocial support is a critical part of his ongoing care.
Because at different stages of his life, he's going to have to deal with his injuries, his experience in different ways.
He's a strong little boy who is not giving up what he loves doing.
He's running around. He's got most of his arm function. In therapy, he continues to improve and get stronger.
In addition to fire and rescue, Rusty also owns a martial arts school. Ryland is training there now.
Nothing has slowed him down. From being on a go-kart, four-wheeler, to being in my class, he doesn't let nothing stop him.
The sense of community in Sutherland Springs is not slowing down. The church is growing.
I know everyone who gave their life that day, some of which were my best friends. One, my daughter. And I guarantee you, beyond any shadow of a doubt, they are dancing with Jesus today, and they would tell you where they are, keep on fighting. Keep on fighting.
You know, people see that sort of tight-knit, grouping, and the way that we love on each other, and, the way that we take each other in, without fault or blame or anything like that. We just become family, and people want that. People want to be a part of that.
My hope for Chris would be to actually live the life that he has always dreamed of.
I feel like God's plan for me is to go out and live life and try things and just be an example of, what it means to be a Christian and what it means to be one of his servants.
As for Ryland, Rusty knows big things are in store.
My hope for him is that he stays strong. He continues on the path that he's on.
The first responders, air medical, and trauma hospitals in the regions have worked together every day for more than 20 years.
Having a well-coordinated, sophisticated regional trauma system impacts patients in the sense that you can get the patient to the right hospital in the shortest amount of time possible so that they have a chance to survive.
Whether it's for a mass casualty response or a routine car crash.
This is what's there every day in case you need it.
University and BAMC are the Level 1 trauma centers for all of South Texas. It's the only military-civilian trauma partnership in the nation.
All of us are then one team, and we work together to make sure that San Antonio, that South Texas, and that the nation is actually at the forefront of great trauma care.
The people of the Southwest Texas trauma system brought their best on this worst of days. The heroes who responded at the church and in our trauma centers brought great skill, composure, and compassion. They brought life-saving light to overcome darkness.
When people see that, when people see the after effect, and the positive things that have come from it, I hope that people are drawn to healthcare and to want to help and, to be a part of it, because it's, these tragedies aren't going to go away, but we need to be prepared for them.
And we should be inspired by the courage, the resilience, and the faith of Chris, Ryland, all of the survivors, and the families of those lost in this tragedy. They represent the love that can overcome hate.